Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to After the Show. Today, we will be going over some news and getting straight into our topic. Do you think some games are too hard or too easy? Do you dislike the Souls games? What do you think about difficulty in games, Adam?
For me, it's very much a mixed bag. There are times where I just want to play the easy game. I think I played Fallout 3 in its easiest mode because I knew it was going to be long and I just wanted to appreciate the story and not have too much of a challenge. Although, especially recently, I've kind of noticed myself. I never almost never play on hard mode, but I have noticed myself playing more on normal mode because I don't know. I just feel there's definitely a sense of pride you get from overcoming a challenge. So, what about you?
Yeah, no, I agree. There's definitely a sense of pride, but my pride does not need stoking so much anymore. So I tend to go with easy. When I was a kid, my brothers and I would. There was a rule that we'd play on normal, but now last weekend, my older brother admitted he was playing Doom Eternal on easy. Uh,
Scandal.
the scandal. But before we get into our topic, want we go over some news?
Yeah, sounds like a good idea. You want to start?
Yes, please. All right. So the big news this past weekend was the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. It was a rumor. Pardon my nose. It's getting into winter here, so I have big allergies. Uh, Mass Effect Legendary Edition was confirmed on the weekend on the N7 blog. N7 is like a Mass Effect thing. And
November
basically they
7th.
said, yes, it's coming out in 2021 spring. It will be a remaster of the game, and a lot of the mechanics and the textures. It will be 4K, 60 frames per second. The PS5, the Xbox Series X will have their own special enhancements to suit those particular consoles. It's really looking cool. The link to the specific article, so you can read it in its entirety, will be on the show notes. So have a look at those. Have a look on the YouTube video as well if you want to look at that. Both Adam and I both loved the series. There were great choices. I loved Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. My older brother loved the first one. 1 and 2 and three's combat are quite different. I'd like to see how they bridge the combat between those two particular games. They said spring 2021. I personally don't think they're going to meet that date because of all the issues combining all three games together, redoing the textures for three games. I mean, three massive games. I mean, between the three games, for me, Adam's probably spent more time. I put in at least 120, 130 hours between the three games. I'm definitely going to pick it up. Depending on the reviews, depending how well it's done, I'd love to play it number 1 and 2 and 3 in 4K. Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if because on the one hand, I would say, yeah, you're probably right. But I mean, given the announcement is now, I would assume that they've already kind of pre planned for COVID and whatnot. So that I would say maybe the spring 2021 is kind of accurate because people have been speculating this for a long time. So
True.
there's probably a good chance that they're relatively far into it and they just didn't want to announce it. I've noticed recently gaming trends when announcing games go one of two extremes. Either they announce it 10 years in advance or they announce it 3 months in advance. I remember, what was it, Fallout 4? When they announced it, they said, "Oh yeah, this game is coming out in like 3 months," and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" And then Final Fantasy
Like
15 was in
3 months, and
development
everyone's
for
like, "Oh
what,
my."
10 years before it came out. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I would say it's a
And
hit or
everyone's like,
miss,
"Oh
but
my
I would
god!" And then
assume that that date is taking COVID into consideration. So we'll wait on that. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the games as well. I also liked Andromeda a lot. A lot of people, it gets a lot of hate. I actually really enjoyed Andromeda.
me
I
too.
felt that the story was relatively uninspired in that it did feel very similar to the original three, where you had the architects were the equivalent of the Protheans, and I don't remember what they were called, but the bad guys, and they're corrupting your dudes and turning it into their army is very similar to the Reapers. So I felt like it wasn't terribly inspired, and basically they just put a new was it a new coat of paint on an old formula. but the gameplay was really solid, and I really enjoyed it. And I think that people were a little overcritical of it. I mean, graphically, yeah, there were some problems with stiff faces and whatnot, but those were patched out. And there are definitely other games out there that get raving reviews and have far more pertinent issues that to date have not been patched out. So I do think it was a little bit harshly. I think a lot of it was the people who were fans of the original trilogy and the idea of moving away from Shepard. They just automatically didn't like it and wanted to find
Yes.
reasons to hate it. So, but I'm kind of a weird outlier in that I really enjoyed Andromeda. My favorite Mass Effect of the original trilogy was 3, which was pretty. The consensus is pretty much that that's the worst of the 3. My order is 3-1-2. Most people's orders is 2-1-3. So my least favorite was 2. Most people's favorite was 2. So don't take my opinion too seriously, because apparently it's not a good one. But yeah, I'm debating as to whether I want to get it or not, because I have already played it, and this will come with all the DLC in it, so that's definitely going to be a big plus.
Yes.
But yeah, 3 games in one, that's going to be a huge time sink.
Oh, exactly.
I mean, I've been kind of putting off .hackgu Last Recode for the same reason, because that's a compilation of 3 games in one, and I just know it's going to be a super long one, and once I start it, I'm going to have to finish the whole thing. So, but yeah, I agree with you too. It's going to be really interesting to see how they do combat and stuff, because yeah, in the first one, 2 and 3 weren't that dissimilar. They were
Yes.
fairly similar, but the first one was very different in terms of how combat and say planet exploration
Yes.
worked out. Now, I have heard, I don't know if this is true or not, I heard a rumor that they were going to forego some of the planet exploration in the first one and make it similar to the scanning of Mass Effect 2. Have you heard that?
That I have not heard, but
Okay.
I like for me, I think it's they're not gonna make Spring 2021. It's just because of integrating and making a flawless series of mechanics between the 3 games.
Yeah, no, that's definitely going to be really, really tough, especially with in the original game. You know, your character can save over, and you can have some of your stats carry over. But here, if it's one big game, you know, suddenly you finish book 1, chapter 1, and suddenly the mechanics just completely shift.
Yes.
And you know, I think back in the day when you had one game release and the next game didn't release for another 2 years or so, there's kind of that downtime, so that when you jump into the second game, you know, players are like, oh, okay. I played them back to back when I did it, because I didn't play them until maybe a few months before Andromeda came out. I wanted to make sure I got through the original trilogy before Andromeda came out. But yeah, moving from 1 to 2, it wasn't super jarring, but it was kind of, it did feel like a step back in a lot of the, like, oh, now you have ammunition. And I had gotten used to, like, okay, pace yourself when you're shooting, you know, make sure you don't overheat your weapon, and,
Yes.
you know, tweak things and whatnot. And then you get to 2 and suddenly it's really action oriented and everything's
Exactly,
fast.
exactly.
And that was a little bit jarring. So,
Yeah. No, the one had like more tactical combat, and my older brother, he loves that. I hope they have like maybe a choice between tactical and action, because I would like I'd like the choice to be able to do that. That would be like a fantastic addition to the game. And they are introducing more modern mechanics, so maybe they'll give us, like some games have the option of like a 8-bit mode or 16-bit mode for like a classic Switch pixel art games. But that's graphics, so who knows? I'm interested to see how it turns out.
yeah, that's an interesting. I hadn't even thought about that, but especially with, say, I know a lot of games now with the PS5 and the Xbox X series, they're allowing you to choose: do you want to focus on frame rates, or do you want to focus on graphics? And so a lot of these games now are actually offering that option. I
That
know,
is a
for
cool
instance,
option.
yeah, a lot of games are offering that. I think Ghost of Tsushima, they're allowing you, do you want to lock it at 60 frames per second, or do you want to upgrade the graphics, but your frame rates might drop below 60? And I've heard a lot of other games are going to be offering that as well. So yeah, that might be a thing where they're saying, okay, do you want to lock it at a certain graphical thing so you can kind of have that old school kind of blocky Mass Effect 1, or do you want to, smooth everything out, make it all nice and pretty? So it'll be interesting to do. And I'm wondering if they make some other changes as well, just because I know there were some control shifts. I remember moving between, I think it was between when I played 2 and 3, and some of the ways that you would use your powers were a little bit different. I always played as the tech one, where you could get like the flamethrower and all that. And I remember there were
That's
some
cool.
things. Yeah, I think it was the way. You know how they could combo things. So if you put like,
Yes,
for
the
instance, if you
adepts.
so if you had like somebody, maybe they lifted a guy in the air and then you could like attach a grenade to it, or or they would take extra damage if you had done this or done that.
Yes, yes.
I think there was some changes that they would make between the games, so it'll be interesting to see if they try to make kind of a more universal. And it'll be interesting to see which system they go with, because
Yes.
obviously, no matter what you do, somebody's probably not going to be happy. So,
Of course, of course.
yeah, I do kind of. I don't think they'll do this. I do kind of hope they do what they did in Mass Effect Andromeda, where you could put the mods on your weapons, and one of the mods, or when you built the weapon, you could build it that it had the traditional Mass Effect 1 ammo system, where it was all based on heat. So you could actually build Mass Effect 1 weapons. I think that would be cool, because that's what I definitely went with in Andromeda, were those. I was always paranoid of running out of ammo.
I would be too.
Yeah. All right, so I'll move into my news. I actually have two different news, or unless there's something else you want to talk about. Or
No. Go
Okay.
right ahead.
So I have two pieces of news. The first one is the PS5 speeds versus the Xbox speeds, and these are load speeds. And so before we start, there were actually two different videos that I saw that tested this. One was from GameSpot, the other one was from Trusted Reviews. They were both released on November 6th. And this is relevant because this is basically first shots in the console war, and it's just going to go downhill from here. You've probably seen the Xbox and the Sony fanboys, and they are going at it right now. So basically what happened was they loaded up similar games, or they would load up two games simultaneously to see if games load up faster on the PS5 or the Xbox, because PS5 has been touting their faster SSD and how games are going to have almost no load time and that sort of thing. So I went through, and not only did I watch the videos, but I did the math to figure out how many seconds there were difference between each one and all that. And there are some things to take to note. So if we're on surface value, it looks like the Xbox is faster. And it was definitely faster in all the videos of the GameSpot video. So GameSpot reviewed Red Dead Redemption, Final Fantasy 15, Destiny, Monster Hunter, and Batman Arkham Knight. Now, personally, I think Destiny and Monster Hunter were weird choices because both of those games have an online element, and they went from they went from the dashboard into the game. So it's not just about loading speed. You're also having to factor in connection speed to the servers. So I thought that was kind of a weird test for loading speed, just because you're actually, it's like basing somebody's speed off of a relay race and saying, oh, you're faster because you won the relay race. But at the same time, you're not the only person running in that race.
Exactly.
So you have an impact on it. Absolutely. But so I thought those were weird choices. I don't know why they went with those two. Maybe just because they're really popular games right now. Now, there were still definitely some differences. For example, in Destiny, if you ignore from login and you go in purely from character select, Destiny was only 1 second faster, whereas Monster Hunter from character select was 13 seconds faster. So there are still some differences there, but again, you're connecting with the server, so that was a weird thing. Now, Trusted Reviews got slightly different results. Trusted Reviews, they actually had two games that loaded up faster on the PS5, and those were The Witcher 3 and Yakuza. Yakuza are loading up, or I'll just go through real quickly what everything was. Red Dead Redemption, Xbox was faster by 0.1 seconds, so just slightly faster. Final Fantasy 15, which is the only game that was loaded up on both reviews, in the GameSpot review, it loaded up 12.24 seconds faster. However, in the trusted reviews, it was 18 seconds faster. So there's a discrepancy of about 6 seconds. However, in the GameSpot review, both games were loaded from the same point. If you look at the timestamp, both games have less than 6 minutes of play. They're loading into the same area. Whereas if we go to Final Fantasy 15 on the trusted game reviews, where it's an 18-second difference, the PS5 version started on chapter 13, whereas the Xbox only started on chapter 3, had about just shy of 8 hours of gameplay, whereas the PS5 version had over 37 hours of gameplay. So that's one of the things that people have been kind of nitpicking, is when they're loading up, you have to show the games loading into the same spot. And a lot of these didn't do that. Red Dead didn't do that. One of the Final Fantasies didn't do that. Destiny obviously didn't do that. Monster Hunter didn't do that. Outer Worlds did not do that. Nier Automata did not do that. Yakuza did not do that. So it's kind of a weird thing. Only 3 games did it. Final Fantasy 15 on the GameSpot review, Batman Arkham Knight on the GameSpot review, and The Witcher 3 on the trusted review. Those are the only 3 games that loaded from the same spot. So basically, when you do all the numbers, here's what it boils down to. Of all the games, Xbox had an average quicker load time of about 8 seconds. Non-online games, so if we disclude Destiny and Monster Hunter, Xbox is still faster by 6.16 seconds. However, if we're only looking at the games that were loading the exact same save, or roughly to the exact same spot with the exact same amount of gameplay, then Xbox only has an advantage of 1.7 seconds, so everything is reduced. So what that's really saying is we don't really know what the margin of error is here. It would have been nice to see them loading the same game multiple times, because even for me on my PS4, if I'm loading a game, it might take me 20 seconds one time and it might take me 30 seconds another time. So it would have been nice to see them kind of loading the game multiple times and then taking an average load time for each game and comparing the averages. It does appear that Xbox is definitively faster, though. However, Sony fanboys, don't cry just yet. Now, it does look like Xbox is going to be faster for last-gen games. And the reason for that is because last-gen games were not optimized for SSDs. They were still using kind of the older hard drives. And because of that, these games are compressed. And then what happens is the games have to load up from memory. They have to decompress through the CPU. And Xbox has a faster CPU. So even if PlayStation can get the data off of the hard drive faster, it still decompresses slower. However, games that are optimized for the SSDs, the PlayStation SSD, from what we've seen, is statistically better. So we might see a difference. And that's why, you can look at The Witcher and you can look at The Witcher 3, and on the PS5, The Witcher 3 loads in 18, 20 seconds, whereas Miles Morales loads in 2. So, I mean, you're looking at PlayStation 5 games loading faster than PlayStation 4 games. So that's something to consider there. So, don't cry just yet. It'll be interesting to see if they redo this once the PS5 officially launches and we can look at some games that are optimized for it, such as Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Godfall or some of these other things. So once those come out, it'll be very interesting to see if this changes or if it's the kind of the same thing. So, yeah. So really, if you're a backwards compatible guy, if you're looking to go that backlog, Xbox has got you covered. They're going to be faster. So
Okay.
yeah, no, and I feel kind of weird expressing that, because I'm like, I've already expressed that I'm a Sony fanboy, and so obviously any time that I'm like, Xbox is faster, but I feel like I'm making excuses for PlayStation. But really, it is one of those things where it is going to be harder to say. For example, if you looked at the amount of RAM, the speed, or if you look at the speed of the PlayStation SSD versus the Xbox SSD, I think it's something like 2 or 3 times faster. So it'll be interesting to see, because the games that are theoretically, before, we would, like I said, they would always compress these games. But now, to optimize the game, you would almost have to not compress it, which actually might end up making your game larger on the SSD, but you can pull it faster off because you don't have to decompress and stuff like that. So it will be interesting to see. I say maybe wait until December or something like that and see if somebody does it again with games that are optimized for next gen. It's also worth noting that all the games that were reviewed are on their latest patches. None of them have been optimized for the next gen consoles. And of all of them, the only one that's been confirmed that it will be optimized is Destiny. So it looks like most backwards last gen games will be faster on the Xbox. So if you do have that big backlog, maybe play your backlog on the Xbox, and then when you're done, then you can move on to something else. But at that point, you already have an Xbox, so you know what? You might as well just stick with your ecosystem. So, but yeah, but that is not the only bad news for Sony, unfortunately. Oh no, it gets worse. So originally, Sony was touting this kind of quick resume feature. I had mentioned in the previous episode where the idea is I'm playing Little Big Planet, and my friends sign online and they want to play Star Wars Squadron or something like that. So it'll load Star Wars Squadron in the background, and I can pop over to Star Wars Squadron real quickly. And then when I'm done, pop back to Little Big Planet. Now, unfortunately, that feature is not going to be available on the PlayStation. It is available for the Xbox, though, and you can do it with multiple games, not just 2. So that is a big blow to Sony right there. A lot of people are upset about it because they never confirmed 100% that we were going to have it, but it was thought that we would. Now, this is something that can be patched in later, but we're not sure if it will be. And the other piece of bad news is that the PlayStation 5 cannot store PlayStation 5 games externally, but the Xbox can. Now, obviously, the games want to be stored locally so that you can make the best use of those SSDs. However, what can happen on the Xbox X series is you can save your game. So if you're playing, say, Godfall, and you want to play another game, you don't have enough room on your hard drive, go ahead and move Godfall over to your external hard drive. Play whatever game you want to play on your main drive, and then later on, if you want to go back to Godfall, all you have to do is copy it back from the external drive, copy it back into the SSD, and then you're ready to go again. You can't read it from the external hard drive, but you can kind of swap it in and swap it out. PS5 does not allow that. If you want to play a PS5 game and you want to play another game, and you don't have enough space, you have to delete it from your system. If you want to play it again, you'd have to reinstall it again later. You cannot move it to an external hard drive. So that is another big blow to Sony. However, you can do this with PS4 games. So PS4 games can be put on an external hard drive. It's only the PS5 games that cannot currently. That will likely be patched. I would say between these two features, the ability to put a PS5 game on an external hard drive is probably the more likely to be patched in later at some point. Also, adding even more to the bad news for PlayStation, the additional SSD drive has been disabled on launch. We are going to have to wait for a patch before you can start installing an additional SSD into your system to expand that hard drive spot. So you are going to be limited. And currently, the PlayStation SSD is, I don't remember exactly how many gigabytes it is, 825 or whatever. But only about 600 and something of that is accessible. So it is a relatively small storage space, and that is going to be the case for the foreseeable future. And like I said, every time you want to play a game, you're going to have to re-download it because you can't put it to an external hard drive. So Sony's kind of hurting right now, and it makes me feel sad. Any questions or?
Yeah. Now, these two issues that you've mentioned, the loading times, the external hard drive, the quick resume, do you think it's going to affect sales?
I don't think so too much, only because, I think most people at this point have already kind of decided what they want. I mean, obviously, pre-orders have already gone up. I don't think anybody's going to be ending a pre-order over it. And it's one of those things where it's a quality of life issue. It's not a huge issue. I mean, let's face it. If I'm playing The Witcher on... Okay, well, The Witcher was an example of a game that's faster on the PS5. I don't know why it was faster on the PS5, but for whatever reason, The Witcher was quite a bit. The Witcher was 15 seconds faster on the PS5. Who knows why? But let's say a game like The Outer Worlds. The Outer Worlds was 20 seconds faster on the Xbox, okay? So that's significant. That's a third of a minute. However, I would say that the PS5 is still faster than the PS4, and it's still faster than the Xbox One. So this gen, you're still faster than the previous gen. You're not slowing down per se. You're still speeding up. You're just not speeding up by as much. So in that sense, you're still benefiting. And I think the number one reason people buy a PlayStation is not for the hardware. It's for the software. It's for the exclusives. And I think people are willing to wait an extra 15 seconds to play Horizon Forbidden West. I think for most people, that's going to be an acceptable trade-off. And also, like I said, this is for backwards compatible games. Xbox has said from the beginning, we want to be backwards compatible. We really want to do this. PlayStation just kind of towards the end was like, okay, we'll add it. So backwards compatibility was never really part of their strategy. I mean, I would say for the people that this would be an issue, backwards compatibility would have been the bigger issue to begin with. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to affect sales too much. I think it's just going to... I think this is mostly just fuel for the console wars. But, yeah. So this is just... Yeah, and if you go into the comments on any of these videos, you can see it. It's PlayStation guys getting super defensive. It's like, whoa, wait for next-gen games that are optimized for the SSD, and then we'll come back and see, huh? And they're saying like that, and they're like, well, this is all backwards compatible games. Nobody plays old games anyway. That's all the Xbox people, and then that's all the PlayStation people, and all the Xbox people are like, oh, PlayStation, you said you were going to be so strong, but look at how weak you are now, huh? Yeah, more like the crap station. I mean, it's all petty, childish. If you look at, look at the comments and look at how many times the word PlayStation is used versus how many times the word like crap station is used, or how many times the word Xbox is used versus, crap box or so. The derogatory names are almost more common than the official name. So you can kind of tell that this is just a petty argument between insecure man children. So if I can say that.
Insecure man children.
Yeah. No, I'll admit, when I saw it, I was kind of like, no. But then the more I think about it, it's like, it's not that big of a deal. I still, yeah. And that's the thing, is you'll have the Xbox, the PlayStation guys will say like, well, we still get Horizon Forbidden West. Ha ha ha. And then the Xbox people are like, like, oh, you got to defend yourself with exclusives, It's the same thing that happened with the Bethesda acquisition, where the Xbox people are like, oh, yeah, this is perfectly fine, like, this is how the industry works. Get over it. You guys have had exclusives for forever with your, Sony always buys up exclusive studios, but, so this is par for course. It's not changing my mind. I don't think it's changing anybody's mind. I think it's just making us hate each other more. Tribalism is out in force.
The quick resume thing, like once you mentioned it, and I'm like, I saw it on the news, and I'm like, oh my god, I'd love that ability to just, in my Steam catalog, click on a game and it just go to where I just stopped the other night.
Oh yeah, no, it's an amazing
me
feature.
So much time. Oh, I hope.
Well, okay, so in a way, PlayStation and Xbox have had this for a long time. Like my PlayStation, what I do is when I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima, I'll save it, and then I put the PlayStation into sleep mode, and then I walk away, and then when I come back, I just wake the PlayStation up, and it's exactly where I left off. It's as soon as it loads up, it loads up and boom, bong, 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 and then there I am, right exactly where I left off in the game. I don't have to load anything; it's just straight in. So they've had that. This is more that if, say, I'm playing a game, like if you're playing a game and then your brother's doing his homework and then he finishes his homework, he's like, it's my turn to play, so you're going to go do your homework. You don't have to close out your game. It would just pop in. He could play his own game.
Yes.
And you don't lose your progress. So the PlayStation can still do that with one game if you put it into sleep mode. Yes. Xbox can do it with multiple games. So this is really good for a family. It's also good if you're the kind of person who does a lot of, say, multiplayer type stuff. So you and your friend, you're doing your own single player things, and your friends sign on, and then you go on and play some Titanfall or whatever, and then switch over and play Call of Duty. So if you're popping between a lot of games now, outside of a family situation, I don't think too many people are juggling games that much. Maybe two, but
I find
features there if you want it.
a lot of, again, as a trend, a lot of middle-aged, older gamers I listen to on podcasts, look at comments online. They sort of go along the line like, oh, today I'm playing this because I feel like that. Oh, today I want to feel like playing this. So people usually, like, I've got 6, 7 games installed on my PC at the moment, and I don't play them all. But if I'm in the mood for something, yeah, I'm just gonna launch it up, and like to me that would be cool. Like, okay, you were
Yeah,
playing Doom last week Thursday. Oh, it's still saved at the last point. We just shotgun something, and oh, now you're playing Legend of Korra. Oh, it's still there. And then I'd love to be able to say, all right, just snap my fingers there, snap my fingers here, and just go into games, and that would be the ultimate time-saving mechanism.
that's true. Yeah, I mean, and this is definitely something worth noting. Is like I said, to me, it's kind of like, oh, from my perspective, I'm saying, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Maybe it's good if you're a family. But that's because I'm the kind of person that, like, we've done this completionist versus
Yes, yes,
game
yes,
hopper.
yes.
I'm a completionist, so I would, even with that feature, I would almost never use it. I would basically only use it for hopping into multiplayer games and then hopping back into my single player game. So for me, that feature's not a big deal, but for somebody who's a game hopper, yeah, it could be a very huge deal. So
Yes.
in that sense, if you're a game hopper, I could definitely see some people thinking, "Uh-oh, maybe Xbox is the way to go for me." Um, but again, I don't think it's going to affect sales that much because
No, I agree.
I think most people are pretty much at this point know which direction they're going in. I don't think anybody's changing their minds or still on the fence. I think if they're on the fence, it's more of should I even upgrade to the next gen or not? Not should I go Xbox or PlayStation.
Yes, yes, exactly. Okay, and we're on to our topic for today. So, Adam, what do you think about difficulty in games?
Uh okay, so I'm fine with difficulty in games, but yeah, I think there should be accessibility to everyone. I think the best example currently was, I think it was Sekiro was adding a easy mode, and a lot of people were not happy with that. I know a lot of games such as I think Horizon Zero Dawn had a story mode where basically everything was almost a one-shot kill. So it was super, super, super easy. And I think you could avoid combat almost altogether with the exception of boss fights. I think those were the only things you absolutely had to fight in the game. I don't think, like maybe enemies wouldn't aggro on you or something like that. I don't quite remember. Uh, and I don't think anybody complained about that. But with Sekiro, I know a lot of people got really upset over it. And they were like, no, the point of the game is its difficulty and things like that. And I kind of see both sides of the argument. On the one hand, I think games should be accessible to everyone, kind of like a book. Like, for example, nobody's going to write a book in a secret code that they've only, I mean, unless you're like a Freemason or something like that, you're not going to write a book and then say, like, well, I don't want a portion of the population to read this because it's too difficult. Now, there are obviously difficult books. I'm not going to pick up a theoretical physics book and be like, oh, yeah, this should be more accessible. But the general trend is that we want people, you'll see shows where they would have like Stephen Hawking or Neil deGrasse Tyson explaining these things in simple terms so everybody can understand it. So even if you don't have a background in these things, you kind of have a concept of it, right? So I think an easy mode in games is kind of like that. These games do have a story. You want to experience the story, but you're an older gamer or you don't have as much time. I think the big thing is people don't have time, and a lot of these Dark Souls games, Dark Souls?
Yes, that's what the picture is.
I meant to say Soulsborne, but I meant to say Soulsborne. But a lot of these games, part of the game is dying and trying again and dying and trying again. And I think there is an argument for those people who say there should not be an easy mode, is that this is designed to give you a sense of completion when you beat the boss. That is its artistic merit. That's what it's for. And if you are not getting that because it's too easy and you can blaze through it, then I don't like the argument you're not playing the game as intended, but you are not experiencing the art in the way that it is meant to be experienced. I think it's kind of like, for example, if you were to watch a Quentin Tarantino film and they cut out all the cursing and they cut out all the violence and they made it accessible to a G audience, so they made it a G rating of a Quentin Tarantino film, then you're not getting what you know like it's supposed to shock you. It's supposed to instill disgust in these things. It's supposed to make you think like, oh my God, right? That's the point. If you take that out, then why are you watching this film? And I think there is an argument to be said for that in these difficult games. But I like things easy, so I mean, what about you? Yeah.
Yeah, but like I'm curious because I mean, as long as I've known you and you've talked about games, I've never heard you ever complain about like a difficulty spike in games or games being difficult, and or like you're like, oh God, I'm stuck, Korean. How do I do this? Or well, you'd never ask me, but because we don't play the same stuff. But like, have you ever struggled in a game?
Yes. There's one game that comes immediately to mind that made me not rage quit, but throw my controller in anger.
You
Like
really
physically
threw a
throw my
controller?
controller in it. I threw my controller in anger. Now, I did have enough restraint that I threw it at a beanbag chair. So I was mad. I was so mad. It was Soul Calibur 6.
Oh, okay.
And yeah. And what happens is in Soul Calibur 6, it gets to the point where if you're playing story mode, then you level your character up. But the way that they level it up is, and a lot of people were complaining about this, is at a certain point, the enemies, what do they do? What's called controller reading or input reading. So what's happening is instead of reacting to my character through an artificial intelligence, it just reads my inputs and immediately reacts to my inputs.
That's
And
terrible.
yeah, and so it would make it super, super hard. And it got to the point where in the game, there's kind of a mechanic where you can kind of lock weapons with the guy, and then you press a button. You can press high, low, or I think dodge. I don't remember what they are, but you press them, and it's kind of a rock, paper, scissors mechanic where like high beats mid, mid beats low, low beats high, or whatever. Or no, I think it's you can hit high, low, or mid, or you can back out of it. And basically, when you get to that level, that's the only way you can beat these guys because they will block every attack. They will dodge every attack because when I hit square, it doesn't intelligently react to what I'm playing or try to think it out or have a random generator. It says, he hit square, block high. He hit X. So basically, the only thing that you can do is get them into this lock mode and then hope that you win in rock, paper, scissors.
Oh,
And that's the only way you can basically beat these guys. I mean, maybe there are like some super, super, super good players out there that can juggle them once they get them in the air or whatever. But for your average player, it was basically impossible to beat some of these things. And so I'm like, and I mean, you've already completed the story. These are like the extra quests. But yeah, I would just have to luck my way through it. And that was the only way I could do it. And there were guys that I would fight like one dude. And the thing is you can't just beat him. You have to beat him 2 out of 3 rounds. So, you have to be able to dodge almost perfectly because even though he can dodge you perfectly, he can still attack you. So you have to be able to react to them almost perfectly. You have to win in paper, scissors, and I keep saying paper, scissors, stone. I've been in Taiwan for too long. You have to win at rock, paper, scissors. And then you have to be able to do this consistently twice in a row. And yeah, I got so mad after playing the same guy for like half an hour. I was like, ah! And I was like, wanted to throw my controller so bad, and I saw the beanbag chair, and my body was just like, chuck it. And then immediately after doing it, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I've actually done that. I'm not that kind of person. I feel so bad.
was your
And I
controller okay?
Oh, it was fine. It was a beanbag chair. I mean, it's soft, right? But I
Okay,
mean, just the
okay.
fact that I was like, I let my emotions get the best of me. I'm turning into one of those guys. And then I felt really guilty, and I was like, I'm so glad my wife isn't home and saw me rage quit, So then I kind of shamefully walked across the room and picked up my controller and sat back down. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to end this fight and back down. Like,
So I mean,
but yeah, it was
did you
kind of
do
like a
the
shameful
finish
thing
the
for me.
fight?
No, I
No.
never beat him.
Okay. Okay.
I moved on to other games. I mean, I had already beaten the story mode at that point and everything. But yeah, that was the only time I've ever done that. I'm the kind of person though where I tend to cheese things a lot. I don't like to play fair. I like to game the system. I remember back in Armored Core, which is a game that I reviewed last week,
Yes.
that and I think it was Armored Core 2. There was a level where it's a big flat shallow water area and there's a dam in the background and the dam has platforms on it. And if I was fighting ACs, what I would do is I would go up to the dam and then I would hop to the highest one and stand on the edge. And when they would fire their missiles at me, because the AI doesn't jump up with you, it kind of tries to attack you from the ground, I would just stand up on the edge. They would attack me, and then I'd back out. And then by the time all the projectiles reached my position, they would just slam into the bottom of the balcony that I was on. And I would just do that till they ran out of ammo.
Oh,
And then I could
nice.
just freely destroy them. So I was gaming the AI there, and then there's a type of missile that fires vertically, and it fires vertically, and then it kind of arcs around and comes down on you. But that one, because it fires vertically, could come up and cut at me at an angle. So then when I would fight those guys, they'd be like, "Oh, okay, well I'm not going to fight you at the dam. I'm going to fight you in this parking garage," because then their missiles just go flying straight up into the ceiling.
Yes.
And then it just completely negates their weapons. And I mean, I would do that to win all the arena fights, So I'm just like, ha ha ha, cheese the system. So I would do stuff like that. Or, I'm the kind of guy who, if I was playing Jedi Fallen Order and there's this big thing, then I would just, kind of like run far, far away and run around and run up to it and hit it and then run far, 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 far away again, and then run up and then hit it, because you're supposed to engage it and block and parry. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to take 20 minutes to kill it by just doing this guerrilla tactic. I could kill this thing in 5 minutes, but no, I'll kill it in 20
Okay.
because I can just hit and miss it. And, so that's the kind of person that I am. I cheese my way through things. Yeah.
You ever done like a story mode or something in a game like Assassin's Creed Origins had that where it just was like a tour mode or something where you didn't
Yeah.
there was no fighting, there was just go around, look at the cool stuff in Egypt, and it was supposed to be like an educational mode implemented by Ubisoft. But I mean, in other modes where I've heard of games where um, it plays the actual part where you have to move around and do stuff, and you just have to make decisions. You just have to make decisions in an RPG. I don't remember which game had it though, but like, you ever done anything like that?
No, I haven't. You mean kind of like what was it? That one Mario game where you could put it in tutorial mode and put the controller down and it would beat the level for you, like that?
There was some sort of
And
like
you're just
Mass
making,
Effect
like-
style RPG where the computer would play for you, and you just need to make character decisions or dialogue decisions.
Okay. Actually, Nier Automata had that feature. If you play in the easiest version of Nier Automata, what you can do is you can equip chips because you're an Android, so you can equip chips to your CPU, and you can only equip them on easy mode. But on easy mode, there's an auto fight and an auto dodge chip.
Yes.
And so you can put your controller down, and 2B the game will automatically fight for you.
Nice.
And basically you never have to fight. I mean, you still have to sit there and let the fights play out, and you could manually take over, but yeah, you don't have to do any of the fights. You can let the computer do it automatically for you. I've never done something like that. I do like, I don't say I like the challenge, but I do like playing through the fights for the most part. I streamed Ghost of Tsushima yesterday, and I was playing at the end, and there's a part where you're trying to storm a Mongolian stronghold there, and I put on my cheese armor where I can basically heal myself indefinitely. But yeah, I like going through. I like trying to just the cinematicness of it. I feel like if I was playing through and there's no fighting and stuff like that, I almost feel like I'm missing part of the story. Because I feel like that's part of the character's journey. That's part of what the character has to go through. And even if it's easy, I still feel like that's what the character had to face. If you just took all the enemies out, I would feel like, oh, well, the character's not facing any real danger. You know what I mean? Like for instance, in something like Ghost of Tsushima, if you got rid of all the wandering Mongolians and only had the boss fights, it would be kind of like, oh, here we're talking about this huge invasion, but everything looks fine to me. You know, I'm just walking around with these deer. Everything's peaceful. I think it kind of takes away, it detracts from the story in that sense. So for me, I like to leave it in. I'll just put it on a much lower difficulty setting. You know, so instead of like right now with maybe my gear, if I want to break their defense, I have to hit them 3 times, and then it takes another 3 hits to kill them or something like that. You know, just 1 hit kills. You know, but I still see the enemies out there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, for me, difficulty in games is something I tried it earlier growing up. I would be okay with different kinds of games, FPSs and stuff. And if you've been listening or watching our show, you know, like I tried BioShock 2 remastered and immediately bounced off that. That like early, when did the BioShock 2 come out? Maybe early 2000s difficulty was just can't do it now. I don't have time to figure this stuff out. I don't want to Google it and feel like a cheater either. So I'm just like, okay, BioShock, you were fun for 2 hours. Uninstall, play the next stuff. Um, why this was a topic for me is like there's so many games I feel I've missed out on just because they're just too difficult. Too many mechanisms are catered for people who have time to play, like Dark Souls. People who play 2-3 hours, who get that enjoyment out of dying and starting over again. And I mean, I don't get any enjoyment out of that. I just get frustrated, like Adam and his story with Soul Calibur 6, and it just makes me so angry. And I feel like these games have said, "Hey, sorry, you don't play the game we like. You don't play the game how we like it to be played. So this game is not for you." And I disagree with that. And Adam mentioned the Tarantino movies and stuff. I'm like, if there was a Tarantino, there's loads of movies I haven't watched just because they're too violent. I don't watch horror movies or crazy violent movies. I mean, please remove all that stuff out. I'd love to watch it just for the story. Hell yeah.
You'd watch a Quentin Tarantino movie with none of the cursing and the violence?
Of course, I would, because I don't care about that stuff. I mean, it's I just want to see, okay, A, down to B, done. Okay, cool. I understand what happened. Goodbye.
But editing out some of that, I mean, you're missing part of the story. Or a
Some
huge
of the
chunk of it in a
story.
Tarantino movie, but I mean...
But I mean, like, to me, I get the overall point. That's good enough with me. I mean, like, Dexter, you know, Dexter, the unfiltered Dexter had the blood and the torture stuff, and I watched the networked version, USA Network version of Dexter without any of the blood, any of the curse words and stuff that were in Showtime. That was fine. I enjoyed it. I think that was a brilliant TV show.
But I mean, in a TV show, like, for example, they're designed in mind that we can edit this out or add it in. I mean, something like, say, a Quentin Tarantino movie, you'd be missing huge swaths of story and plot and character development and things like that, right?
I mean, I'm not saying you edit out the action or the blood. I mean, you edit out the blood, the gore, the excessive stuff, but you leave in the basics. I mean, leave the action parts where he shoots like the, what is it, the Django Unchained. I mean, there's loads of,
Just show guys falling down, but no blood spatter.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, like, in Grand Theft Auto 5, you always get the idea that Trevor's kind of messed up.
Oh, yes.
But going through some of the scenes that he goes through, like there's a torture scene where he has to torture a guy, and that's where some of the other characters kind of look at him and like, oh my god, this guy is really kind of screwed up. And I feel like if you didn't have that scene in there, it would feel like the other characters are like, you're like, I know he's screwed up, and the other characters see that, but it would just kind of seem like he's not that bad. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
you don't have that same kind of like, yeah, there's something really screwed up with this guy. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, everybody says there's something, you know what I mean? It's a difference between seeing it and understanding it versus hearing other people talk about it.
Yes. No,
So,
totally true.
yeah, but okay. Yeah, it's just kind of an interesting thing. But yeah, with difficulty in games though, I think difficulty in games, I think is more similar to like what you're saying with Dexter, where it's like you could still play the game and then the difficulty isn't the story, right? You
Yes.
know, like a torture scene in a game or a torture scene in a movie might be really, really important to understanding a character's motivations. You take out that scene or you tone down that scene, their motivations now might seem as an extreme reaction as opposed to an appropriate reaction. But yeah, I mean, taking, you know, like, oh, this enemy is a slightly harder to kill. Yeah, you might not have that same sense of completion, but you still kind of have one. Now, I will say that I do feel that people who do feel that games should have difficulty in them, I do approve of rewards for that kind of gameplay. For example, adding a trophy for completing the game on hard mode. I think that's perfectly appropriate.
Yes.
Some games will add something like, oh, a special skin for people that have completed it on hard mode. So you can, you know, if there is like a multiplayer mode or something and somebody notices like, oh, your character's wearing that jacket, you must have completed the main game on hard mode. You know, I do kind of see, I totally approve of like a badge of honor for people that have done that. Especially if it doesn't affect gameplay. It's just kind of a purely cosmetic thing. To kind of show off like a trophy, like, hey, look what I got. Hey. I do totally approve of that. But I do wish more games would allow for everybody to play. Now, I do feel a little bit conflicted on games where I haven't played a Soulsborne game,
Yes.
but I know that there are some games that are kind of like that where the story is extremely minimalist. So there's not really all that much story, and the point is the difficulty. And on those ones, I'm kind of like, yeah, I kind of conflicted because I mean, let's play an easy game with no story. It's like, why are you playing this game?
Well,
What
that's
are you
tough.
getting out of it?
For
I
the
guess,
for
yeah.
the stuff. I mean, there's a game, Everspace. Everspace 2 is out. It's a space roguelite game where you fly a ship, you go to different places, you find stuff, you get loot, you die, and you get money. I'm in it for the loot. I don't care about the story. I don't care about the combat unless it's too difficult. But that game is just like, within the first 15 minutes, you just die, and I'm like, what? And I have to start all over from the beginning, and no, I mean, I just want to play games like Dark Souls, play games like, what is that game called on the PlayStation? Bloodborne.
Bloodborne.
Yeah. Bloodborne. I'd love to play that, but Dead Cells as well, and just get the weapons, get the loot, do cool things, go to cool places, kill monsters, and I don't care if it's a one shot, one kill. Oh my god, I feel good. I killed a monster. I made the best use of my 1 hour. Not I died 4 times and I hate my life, I hate my computer. I want to jump out of the window. No. No,
I
no,
think that's
no.
actually a good argument too. I won't jump out the window. No, yeah. I think that's actually a good argument too, because I mean, I just now thinking, for the people that say you shouldn't be allowed to have an easy mode, well, they could always just watch a video on YouTube, right?
Yep.
And get the story out of it. And I mean, if it's acceptable for them to watch a story on YouTube and literally have no difficulty because they're watching you do it, why not just let them do it themselves on easy mode, right? Like, why say like, oh no, you can't play it, but you can watch somebody else play it. That's perfectly, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, there's an even easier solution. So why not just let them play it on easy mode? That's definitely an argument to be made there.
And part of it is I don't really blame the audience. I blame developers. Sort of, I felt like within the last 5 years, they've been making games with this like crazy difficulty, and I'm like, I know people like it. I know people have been asking for it, but what about the rest of us? So I hope if developers are listening or watching, they're like, hey, okay, sure, Korean from Middle Age Gaming. Yeah, we'll make our game easy for you.
I'm actually in the opposite camp. I blame the players. Because I mean, yeah, there are definitely these games. They're made with hard mode.
Yes.
Some of them have been patched later. I think Sekiro got an easy mode later on, and now a lot of games have what they call a photo mode,
Yes.
which is basically just run through and take photographs.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think because the developers, I blame the audience, because I feel like if the audience was saying, hey, we want more access, the developers would give it to us. I think right now it's just a case of like in Sekiro, they were going to add it, and then they got a lot of backlash saying don't do that. And I think that's a lot of elitism and kind of the audience thinking like, oh no, this belongs to us, we don't want to share. So I feel like if the audience was a little more, hey, let's, and I've seen games that have easy mode and certain people being like, I don't want to play it because it has an easy mode. You know, and
Okay.
it's like, even though there's still a hard mode, they're like, I don't want to play it because there's an easy mode. So this is a game. It's too accessible, you know, and they want to feel elite. They want to feel better than everyone else, and so they want to play a game that nobody else is going to be able, or that very few people are going to be able to do. So I personally feel it's more on the audience side.
Yeah, no. I after you mentioned that, I'm like, yeah, that is, I guess that is kind of true. Maybe it's more audience and less developer in a sense.
That's right. I'm a convincing guy. I'm good at arguing.
All right, and that's all we have time for. Thanks for tuning in to our show and tell us what you think about today's conversation, even though we talked about movies and TV shows for a little bit. It was still fun.
It was
Uh,
relevant too.
oh, it was. Contact us on Twitter at GamingAge, to Facebook at Knowledge Gaming 2020, Instagram at Knowledge Gaming. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you want us to do more like this, please like us, follow us. We've been picking up follows on Facebook. That has really helped. Please do like us on Facebook. Keep an eye out for the podcast during the week. I will be uploading this one tonight, if possible. And also keep an eye out for this week, Thursday and Friday. I just saw Godfall is actually releasing Thursday morning, Taiwan time, so I will be playing it Thursday night, Taiwan time, as soon as I get out of work, come home. No matter how tired I am, I'm going to be playing Godfall that night, and Adam will be playing Valhalla Friday morning?
Friday morning, our time. That's going to be Thursday evening, U.S. time.
Okay, cool.
That's
So,
the plan.
that is the plan. We will keep you informed on social media. Keep an eye out for that if you want to know about these games. If you watch the reviews, you want to see real people, real older people, except Adam looks young and I have white hair. Uh,
We're
play
not that
these
different.
games.
What is it, like a year or something, right?
Just a year, but look at your ungray hair and my fully
Which is
gray
ironic
hair.
because my name is Gray.
Yes. Okay, that's
Yeah.
that's
That's your
it.
side. All right, and we are trying to improve the visibility of our content. So use those thumbs ups on YouTube and everywhere else, Facebook. Use the like button and whatever. And feel free to leave a comment and tell me why I am wrong. I would love to hear from you, and I would love to argue back. No, but really, I would love to hear some dissenting opinions because maybe you can change my mind. And if you agree, go ahead and tell me that too. And tell
Yes.
Korean that you agree with him too. You can argue with him as well. I'm sure he'd be more than happy.
I definitely would.
Yeah, so we want to build a great media platform for gamers like us to enjoy a variety of content. So please join us and we can build this podcast together. Yay.
Yes, we can. Next week on the game show, Ed and I will be talking about these two new big AAA games that are being released. So keep an eye out for that. As for after the show, we'll have to talk about it later and see what's going to happen.
Mhm.
Okay, have a good day and see you guys next week.